Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Cameron Abbott, the unsexiest comedian that you know and the man whose face was built for radio. I'm joined here by the co-host with the most robust cabose.
Something like that. Hey, everybody.
Chandler Duggar, talking about dab butt.
Oh, gosh.
Dab butt. Robust cabose. Well, all right, so this is the live spoiler cast, so if you're watching this and you don't want to be spoiled about Batman v Superman, get on out.
Right.
Get on out of here. We don't want your kind here, but we want you to come back later.
Right.
Come back later, watch the video. That's cool. But if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Go watch it. This is a film that you got to see it to believe it. Because if we break this down and you haven't seen it, you wouldn't believe that they did this. You wouldn't believe it. You'd be like, "There's no way they got that. There's no way." So actually, it was like a month ago. So a month ago or so, Chandler, you and I talked about Batman v Superman.
Mm-hmm.
The new trailer came out. I saw it. You said, I'm avoiding all trailers.
Right.
You're really like that about actually most movies now.
Yeah, that is very true.
Man, they gave a lot of stuff away in the trailer, but not as much as you'd think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Just like, where do we begin? So the question that we asked and the question we wanted to know, does it work?
Right.
We have not talked about this film at all.
Right.
We walked out of the theater in silence. We asked if either one of us wanted ice cream. That was an answer, was a yes. And then we were like, whoa, this line's really long. Let's not get ice cream.
Right.
And we came right back to the office. So outside of that, there's been very little spoken.
Right.
About and nothing about Batman v Superman. We wanted to keep it fresh for you guys. So, Chandler, does it work?
I think so. I mean, that's the impression that I got. Is it worked?
It worked, yeah.
Yeah, they managed to pull it out of. I don't know where they pulled it from, but it worked.
It works. So. I think that's I tweeted at people and they said, "Oh, this is how I feel about it." And I was like, I just need to know if it works. I don't care if it's good or not. I don't care if it was good or not. It works.
Right.
And if it works, then that means the universe that they're building will work.
Right.
And if that's the case, then there you go. Mission accomplished.
Exactly.
There, and there's no way that this could have been. So everybody's going to try to compare it to the Avengers. And the reason why you shouldn't compare it to the Avengers is because of this. There's only been one film preluding to Batman v Superman. Avengers. So imagine this. You saw Iron Man 1, the first of the Marvel movies, cinematic universe movies. You saw Iron Man 1, and then they gave you the Avengers.
Right.
Would you be okay with that? No. It would be like,
right.
I don't know who this guy is. Or what's this motivation? Who's Thor? I don't know. And the fact of the matter is that Batman v Superman is a movie that probably needed the next Batman film that they're going to do with Ben Affleck.
Right. That
needed to come out first. And then the Wonder Woman movie that they have planned, that they put out a photo of what the Themyscira warriors looked like. Or will look like in her film.
Sure.
And they put those out there and they look great. That's going to be the movie that tells you who Wonder Woman is. It's a period piece in the the World War I. They're doing a period piece, which is interesting, Chandler, of note, because Wonder Woman was not in World War I. She was created during the period of World War II, in which she was recruited to fight Nazis.
There you go.
So,
yeah.
We are in an interesting situation because we have a movie that came out that really should have had at least 2 more movies behind it, or before it, so that you were prepared for it. You don't have that. You don't have the luxury of the knowledge of this universe. You don't have the luxury of knowledge of what's going on, how this is working. You don't get that. You get, literally, this takes place 18 months after Man of Steel. That's a long period of time, and a lot of things have changed, and they don't really go into that because, to be honest, they don't have time.
Right.
This is a 2.5-hour movie. I said a 2.5-hour movie. Chandler and I are both kind of exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm pretty exhausted. Chandler said he's kind of exhausted.
Right now.
It's a long movie, 2.5 hours.
Right.
Big chunk of time. I think that was the only thing we actually talked about Batman v Superman.
Right.
We were like, wow, that was a long movie. And you're like, 2.5 hours. I was like, man, the reality of 2.5 hours is a lot longer than I thought it would be.
Right. And I kind of mentioned that I felt like it needed to be longer,
definitely. If there's problems people talk about pacing, it's that they shoved far too much into probably the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's literally no room to breathe on anything. What's interesting is I understand why people say like the first half of the movie is amazing, then the second half isn't. The point that I think diverges the movie in halves is a sequence that I'm going to be completely honest with you. This movie, I don't know if it's a good movie. I don't know because I didn't watch a movie. I watched a literal like 24 issue series of a comic book come to life.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of pages and panels and word bubbles, I had people and buildings and sets and bat suits and Superman and Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
It was very comic booky. This is the most comic book movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
They always talk about adaptions and things like that, and how they you always hear the writers, the screenwriters say, well, I pulled from this source and this comic and this what. And they kind of did that. They said, oh, this is based off of the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight series in the 1980s by Frank Miller. Batman was definitely inspired by that. This is a Batman who's been beaten down. This is a Batman who has The Dark Knight Returns is, I think that's what it's called. I'm losing major nerd cred here. But that's just because I'm very tired and my mind is kind of all spaced out here. But it's Frank Miller series from the 1980s where Tim Drake doesn't exist. Now, what's important to know about Tim Drake is the Robin that pulled Batman back in. So after Jason Todd dies, Batman goes off the rails. He becomes very much more violent. It's very clear they had Jason Todd die or a Robin die. They might make it Dick Grayson. They might fold them into two and just do it that way, which is fine. I'm okay with that. It's a disservice to Dick Grayson, who has been called actually the linchpin of the DC universe at times. Whenever they talk about killing off Dick Grayson, they say, well, we would, but it makes this fall through and that fall through. Mm-hmm. And that's changed, of course. But man, so Tim Drake doesn't exist in Frank Miller series for a very good reason. You can't have this very semi-homicidal Batman if you don't have Tim. If you have Tim Drake, Tim Drake pulls him back into the light, so to speak, which is amazing. It's really cool character. Tim Drake has a long, pedigree now because of it. Very cool stuff. But you see the Jason Todd outfit spray painted by the Joker. Interesting. It's clear that Lex has some intrigue on him. So Lex throughout the film is pulling everybody's strings. It's Lex Luthor is your bad guy in this movie. Sometimes I felt a little Deus Ex Machina, like, oh, how does he know? Yeah. They don't explain it. They might explain it in the deleted scenes, which there will probably be like another hour and a half of those.
Right.
They might go into that more, but it's like the difficulty is, do we really need to spend 20 minutes of dialogue detailing how Lex Luthor knows Bruce Wayne is Batman and Clark Kent is Superman? Mm-hmm. No, we just find out that he knows. Batman I understand because Batman in this universe has been around for 20 years. 20 years. So this is a long, lengthy career of Batman. He's got like 20 years on top of Superman. But at the same time, it's interesting is because despite all of this, he still remains like a quote-unquote vigilante. Mm-hmm. He's not like accepted by the police. There's an officer that first like 20 minutes of the movie tries to shoot Batman.
Right.
He tries to shoot him with a shotgun. Batman's branding people he's pretty brutal. You see the branding iron that he has at the end of the film, and it's like this burning red hot thing, and then he punches a wall with it instead of Lex, which is basically it's a story of man. And I can't believe they did Death and Return of Superman in this.
Yeah.
There's a lot in this. I'm not joking. There's a lot in this. Instead of Cary Grant kind of pulling Batman back into the scene, Batman hasn't left. He hasn't retired. He's still fighting the good fight, but he's looking for, essentially Batman's being haunted, serious PTSD dreams, very vivid and very interesting. So you see all of Bruce Wayne's dreams in this movie.
Yeah.
It's really weird, and it's like, wow, this is a really interesting take on Batman's mind.
Right.
Batman's fear of Superman is that Superman becomes a tyrant. It's interesting. We see glimpses of the Flash in this. The Flash shows up in costume, time traveling in costume, which is weird because Ezra Miller, I don't know if you know who Ezra Miller is.
No.
So Ezra Miller is really more known for like indie movies. The first big film that I think I saw him in, I think he was, it was the movie where he plays so it's about a family on Staten Island, and he plays their son that's addicted to pornography, which is like, oh, okay, typical stuff. It's like, no, like big girl pornography.
Oh gosh.
So his neighbor does like a cam show where she eats stuff. And the girl that he has a crush on is a larger girl. And at one point in the film, he says, we could go someplace and like I could just like feed you. And she thinks that he's calling her fat.
Right.
And so she freaks out at him and he's like, no, you don't understand. I
get off on this.
Yeah, I get off on this. Like, Anyway, so that's Ezra Miller. He's also was in Perks of Being a Wallflower. He's been in a couple different movies. He was actually in Trainwreck. He was in Trainwreck as an intern. Very, very cool guy. I really like the actor. When asked about Grant Gustin and if he knows Grant Gustin or how he feels about taking Grant Gustin, he's like, no. And then he nerds out about like the multiverse theory. And like, he's like, oh no, you don't understand. Like, he's Barry Allen, but I'm like Wally West, and he's talking about this, and it's like, it's different, and he's going into it. He's like, we're both the Flash, and it's cool. It's like, okay, so Ezra Miller is a total nerd about the Flash, which is awesome. And he looked great. He had like so Lex Luthor sets up surveillance on metahumans, and he gets some security cam footage of Wally West. So he's like going to get milk out of it, and then like the story that he's in is getting robbed, and so he uses his power.
A convenience store.
Yeah, like convenience store, and then he knocks out the robber, and it's like you see like the lightning and everything. It's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool. They are gonna have Cyborg in it. Cyborg actually had basically all you need to know about Cyborg's origin is in this.
Right.
Cyborg's dad brings him back to life as like a Frankenstein monster. But like uses some sort of like, I guess it was like alien technology or something like that.
Yeah, something.
Anyway, so there's that. You have Aquaman, which is basically Aquaman like sonic spear thrusts somebody through the ocean.
It was like some deep sea drone or something.
Yeah, some deep sea drone. He's just like a pool cue and just like pop, and it goes pew.
Yeah.
Sounds like a shockwave. It's really cool. And then they show Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman in the 1900s. 1918 is when the photo is taken, Belgium. Very cool. It's clear that they're setting up the period piece. They're setting up a very unique dynamic between Wonder Woman and Batman, which is, no, Batman, like at one point, they don't address it, but at one point Batman wakes up and he's been drinking and has like PTSD pills and also like a naked woman in his bed. They don't ever address who the woman is. She's not important. The important part is that he's like seeking vices.
Right.
So this is a dark, tortured Batman, which is great because that's when you're going to get a lot of good stuff out of it. Little known thing, there's an actor who plays Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne. And I bring that up because he's actually going to be in our regular podcast. We're going to be talking about him a little bit. You don't know that yet because you haven't seen the script.
Yes.
Or the notes for it. But most importantly is something I didn't realize. So I've been a Batman fan since I was like 3 years old. All right. I know the story of Superman. I'm very familiar with Superman. It did not dawn on me. It did not dawn on me that Batman and Superman's mothers both have the same name, Martha. That's a plot point.
Right.
Lex Luthor kidnaps Superman's mom because he's like, I could kidnap Lois Lane. I already did. But it doesn't change anything because every boy's special woman is his mom. And it's like, oh, that's sweet. Oh, no. Because she got kidnapped earlier, like 5 minutes ago. So she gets kidnapped. And so his mom's being held hostage. And for his mother, the last piece of like his past. He goes to fight Batman. That's how they get him to fight.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor pulls strings. Oh man, we could just. The thing is, normally I'd just be like, let's break down the movie from beginning to end. I don't want to sit here for 2.5 hours explaining everything.
Right. I feel like we would just jump back and forth the whole time anyway.
Yeah, we would. I guess the key points, like the key plot points, is that Batman. So Bruce Wayne was on his way to a Wayne Financial building that was in Metropolis. Mm-hmm. Oh, also weird thing: Metropolis and Gotham across a bay from each other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't get it.
So in DC Universe Online, you can go from Gotham to Metropolis. Like it's easy if you can fly, right? It just takes a couple minutes, and you can go from one to the other, and it is across the bay. That is
accurate, but that's nowhere in any other.
Right, you never think of them as neighboring cities.
No, never.
So,
because Metropolis is supposed to be like, oh shoot, there's like
New York, or is it?
No, Metropolis. I don't know.
Maybe Chicago.
No, I always thought of it as. There's something. This is the problem that's played comic books is that they never put states.
Right.
But like the nearest big city next to nearest to Smallville, Kansas, is Metropolis, wherever Metropolis may be.
Right.
I don't know. You could say that Metropolis is in like the South. You could say that Metropolis is in. It doesn't feel like a California city. It feels like it's back east, but it's like where.
Exactly.
Maybe it's somewhere in the Carolinas. I don't know. I don't know. It's frustrating because it's like, oh, this is weird. We don't ever. They're like, oh yeah, they make like casual references to like, oh, I'm so glad you came across the harbor to come see me. Mm-hmm. Bruce says Lex at one point, so it's clear that like they're close. I guess. I don't know. I guess it makes sense, but then like, is it just he's operating in Gotham? Does he sometimes go to Metropolis? Like, how have they not run into each other before in the last 18 months? Mm-hmm. So you run into just some pickles, plot-wise there, but like I said, this didn't feel like a movie. It felt like a comic book come to life. It felt like I had an entire set of graphic novels about a single story arc that I got and I read through, and it took me 2.5 hours to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Good comic. If that's the case, it's a pretty good comic. But it has weird things. It has like I can see why people like get upset because they're like, oh, Barry Allen, the Flash time travel. Oh, no, being this premonition, but was he dreaming? Oh, I don't know. Get over it. It's comics.
Right.
Like, that's what I would say. If it was a comic book, I'd say, get over it. It's comics.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. This is like one-shot stuff. Don't worry about
it.
Right. This isn't the continuity of the canon of the character. Don't worry about it. But this is it. It is. It's in the movie, the cinematic universe. This is what happened. I don't know why people would be so upset about that unless they really don't care for the kind of sci-fi Batman stuff. Which I do. I like it. I just like everything Batman. But
sure.
I don't know. It's tough to say. I liked it, I guess. Like I said, I didn't think I was going to come out of this liking it or being like, oh, it was an amazing movie, because it's not an amazing movie. It has too many problems to be an amazing movie.
And a lot of times it feels rushed, where they're just trying to throw as much information at you as possible.
They want to make it so that you're not there for 4 hours.
Exactly.
So they cut it down to 2.5.
Right. So, and I felt like it jumped around almost too much.
Definitely too much. There was never a clear transition.
Right. And sometimes it was hard to follow, but then like during the middle of the next scene, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get what's going on now. There was parts where I was a little bit lost, and then I found myself, but like I
didn't have as many of those, but
right. Well, I mean, you've also read more of the comics than I have.
Yeah.
So I had to like rethink about everything that I knew about the comics and say, okay, that's what's going on. Gotcha. So,
man, yeah, no, just a lot of. I mean, it's an interesting movie because it's the most comic book movie that we've ever had. This feels more comic booky than The Watchmen did. Like, The Watchmen doesn't even come close to how comic booky this movie feels. Man, right. I'm trying to just think, like, there's great points in the film, like great, amazing moments in the film. There's a callback to an earlier scene where Lex Luthor is basically putting the creeps on this junior senator from Kentucky. And then she's like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. And then she goes to, like, in a later hearing, she's like looking at this jar, and it's reference to like what is like Granny's peach tea. You can piss in a bucket and call it Granny's peach tea, she says. And then later she finds a jar of something that looks like urine, and on it says in a label, Granny's peach tea.
Yeah.
It's like, and she's like, oh. And she totally throws her off. It does. And it's interesting because it pulls into Survivor issues. There's a character the guy who puts false God on the statue is a guy who Bruce Wayne saves his life. But he loses his legs because like an I-beam fell on him.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's crazy. It's a pretty intense film. It's good though. Jeremy Irons is Alfred. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Really good Alfred.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I put him up there as possibly being the best Alfred.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's that good of an Alfred.
Also, it was just awesome to see him like just doing everything.
Oh yeah,
he's like, here, let me just fix all this mechanical stuff. Oh, by the way, let me fix your Batmobile. Oh, by the way, I'm a drone pilot. Like, what the heck? Where is this
great.
coming from?
He does all of that, but then on top of that, it's like, so does Batman do anything by himself? He does, because there's an entire like montage sequence of Batman building the Kryptonite weapons.
Right.
Which is okay. So the Kryptonite gets introduced in this. Kryptonite was not introduced in Man of Steel. It's introduced here. Kryptonite is different. It doesn't just like weaken them. It literally deteriorates Kryptonian cell contact.
Mm.
It's essentially like if you took like a knife made out of a radioactive material, like, little uranium rods. If you made a knife out of that, and I put it up to Chandler's face, and it would technically, quote unquote, cut him, but it would basically just deteriorate his cells.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to note that Kryptonians actually absorb radiation.
Right.
The fact that, first off, Kryptonite is actually kept encased in like this ridiculously thick casing.
Mm-hmm.
Before it can actually, like, Batman, in order to get the pure Kryptonite, uses like a ridiculously focused powered laser and just like has it on it constantly for a good piece of time. And then eventually like it breaks. So it's clear that they definitely encase this stuff to keep it from harming them. But it's clear they use Kryptonite as a power source. Mm-hmm. It's like using a nuclear engine or something like that, like in a submarine. So you basically have him pulling out. So it's totally normal to humans. Humans can touch it, do whatever with it. It won't bother us at all. But it's toxic. It's not just toxic. It actually deteriorates the cellular structure. It literally will just eat away at them. Mm-hmm. So being like weak around it is basically being like, oh, I'm feeling sick now that it's not like, oh, I'm feeling weak. He's feeling really sick. Mm-hmm. And it's very clear he's really sick by it. And it's really just a cool, Batman figures out like he lulls. So this is how Batman beats Superman, because they do a really great job of doing it here. Very much inspired by the Frank Miller comic, but different because the suit really isn't what's important to Batman. The suit's to protect him. It's to insulate him. He's not worried about the suit, like using it to hurt Superman. He knows he can't. Mm-hmm. He's lulling him in, and he knows that he's going to have to take damage to do that. So he packs on this intense armor. He's in it, and he's getting like thrown around, and for a long time, Superman's countering everything that he's doing. But the thing is, he's lulling Superman into a false sense of security, so that when he does hit him with this gas is amazing. So he takes pieces of kryptonite, and he literally condenses them down into a noxious gas that when breathed in by a Kryptonian, literally breaks them down internally until it wears off and they can regenerate. Mm-hmm. So he's basically poisons him to the point where like it's like a neurological poison. It's like a neurogas, a neurotoxin, and it's just breaking down Superman. And so he uses that to his advantage to just beat the hell out of Superman back and forth. And then he times it. So he figures out how long he has with it the first time. Mm-hmm. Then he regroups, hits Superman with it again. And then this time he knows how long he has. And then he has a spear made out of pure kryptonite. This thing looks amazing. Mm-hmm. And he has it. And the thing is, he plants it inside the ground, the kryptonite itself, so Superman doesn't feel it.
Yeah.
He thinks that far ahead. And then he takes it, and right when he's about to stab him right in the face because he cuts him first. Because there's a scene earlier where he's like, "Do you bleed?" Where that quote is from. Mm-hmm. Do you bleed? You will. That entire point is like put up to this because he cuts him on the face to make him bleed.
Right.
And then he's about to kill him, and then we find out the plot point that both their moms' names are Martha.
Mm-hmm.
And Superman says Martha's in danger. And Superman, of course, has had some dreams where like his mother's like her grave inside the like their mausoleum like broke open after it was like bleeding, and then he's attacked by a bat creature. I told you the dreams of this Batman's dreams are trippy.
Yeah.
Some people are probably wondering if you haven't seen it or you have. There's that entire desert sequence where you're like, what is this? And then you realize, oh, it's a dream. They don't do that right off the bat. That's not the first dream you're introduced to. It's like the third. Mm-hmm. And while it's the most out there version, the entire time is a constant evolution of Bruce's fear of Superman.
Right.
Because Bruce doesn't fear technically Superman. He doesn't fear bats. He fears helplessness. He feels being powerless to stop anything. Mm-hmm. And Superman embodies that very much. And it takes him realizing that like Superman's mother's about to die if he doesn't help Superman save her. So he does. Mm-hmm. And then Doomsday comes out.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh, so how Lex Luthor gets in contact with the alien ship to create Doomsday. Now you're thinking, how did he make Doomsday? It's easy. He took Zod's dead body, combined it with human DNA, which I don't understand the point of that. I thought it was like going to keep Doomsday from punching him, but then Doomsday went to punch him anyway. I don't know.
The point is Doomsday was made, yeah.
Yeah, Doomsday's made by Lex Luthor. It's weird. But it's cool because it's a total Frankenstein's monster scenario. Mm-hmm. Really cool Doomsday. Like, man, they really they made him cinematically. Doomsday was made in the 90s, which means he fundamentally sucks ass. Most things made in the 90s suck. The 90s sucked for comics. Really bad for comics. I mean, there was some good stuff that came out of it. It's definitely some really great stuff that came out of it. But man, it was a hodgepodge of nonsense. There was the comic failure, like the comic boom dropped. There was the massive comic boom that happened in the bubble burst, and then just, I think it was Jeff Loeb who said, I went from having like lunches with Tom Cruise to barely being able to like pay my rent.
Oh, geez.
So, because they were like talks of movie deals and things like that going on in the mid-90s. The comic craze was insane. Comics were everywhere. And that was the problem. Is they did a bunch of them and, it just tanked. Anyway, you can look up about the comic boom and the burst that happened in the 90s. The grim dark overreach that happened in the 90s. Some good stuff came out of it. Some really good stuff came out of it. You had Azrael out of the Batman series, the Dark Knight series, where he took over as Batman. That was interesting. Just like there's good stuff that came out of the 90s, but a lot of terrible stuff. Chandler included. I was born in the 80s.
You know what? Whatever.
Anyway.
Barely in the 80s.
Yep, by a month and a half. By basically 2 months. So yeah, no, like looking at it, it's very clear, at least to me, it's very clear that this was a really great, like, if you were to tell me this was pulled directly from a comic book, I'd be like, wow, that's like a really, like, honest to goodness, very loyal adaptation. The most loyal adaptation ever. But to hear that it was a movie only confuses the hell out of me. Zack Snyder, as always, does great effects. It's beautiful. I guess the point we can talk about is like how many people like Batman like straight up murdered.
Yeah.
Like not directly. He didn't like stab anybody. But
yeah,
there were some moments where it was just like
the scene with the Batmobile where he attaches the tow cable to the car he just smashed and then uses that car to smash another car. Yeah. And you're like, there was like 18 people that right there. I mean,
those two cars were packed. They had like 6 people each. Yeah. A couple people are dead, guaranteed. He's like straight up murdering people. He kills 2 guys with the Batmobile when he comes through the transport. He like literally tears off the top of the transport and takes out 2 guys with them. When he has the Batwing, there's like a bunch of guys on like trucks with mounted turrets and they're shooting at him. And he just puts out like a minigun and just like blows them all away.
Can we talk about that minigun? That was like a minigun.
Yeah, right?
It was like 2 miniguns spinning, and then they were spinning.
Yeah.
It was insane.
They're like, anyway, that didn't make any damn sense.
Right.
Definitely one for the audio listener. Sorry about that. Basically, it was insane. But he killed people. Like, and then he like used the grappling hook to like throw that box
that one
and like crush the dude. Like the dude's like, ugh. It's like, no, you should have been like detached head. That's bullshit. Like, you're kidding me. That box would have taken somebody's head off, and it doesn't. And it's like, oh gosh, it's a spectacle. This is what it is. It's a spectacle. It's definitely not a good movie.
That fight scene with Batman though was.
Oh my gosh, where he's taking on like, what did they say? 24 dudes, so he had to take on 24 guys, and he does it spectacularly. And actually, I really like this bat suit because Batman has it like super reinforced. You actually see Alfred working on just the regular bat suit. You think, oh, that's like the super bat suit, but no. That's the regular bat suit that he's working on. And you actually see he's like, well, I have all this plating, and now I have to do the wiring, I guess. Clear the voice thing works, but not anything else. So he does that, and he puts it all together, and it looks great. But you see like Batman take like a 9mm right to the back of the head, totally okay, which is insane. Like how good that armor must be. But I like how he could take it off if he wanted to.
Yeah.
There's just like he has this like really nice armored weave throughout the suit. The suit looks like it's from the comics, but at the same time, it looks more advanced than even the Bale plating armor.
Yeah.
It looks like instead of doing like armored plating as like a real like quote unquote night concept, they went for like synthetic weaves and stuff like that. It looks great. It really pays off well. Gal Gadot, let's talk about her for a second. You don't know who she is throughout the film, except you're pretty sure you know who she is.
Yeah.
Because she looks like the Wonder Woman in all the promotional material.
Right.
So she's definitely Wonder Woman. We get introduced to her actually at Lex Luthor's party, where she steals some of Batman's stuff.
Right.
And Batman has this thing where it like downloads all of Lex Luthor's files, and she gets it, and she tells him later, she's like, I left it in your glove compartment because I couldn't break the military level encryption.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay. And then he gets it, and he like plugs it in his computer and goes, encryption started. It's like, oh.
Press the NE key.
Yeah, press the NE key to start encryption. And then he has the really cool desert dream sequence, where it's basically like Batman's like the last standout. You know, the last man standing on it against Superman and his tyrannical rule. Anyway, but we have that going on, and it's just, I mean, that's an amazing scene, actually. Superman, you see Superman be brutal. You see his soldiers all are like
bowing to him,
but also they're like all Spetsnazed out.
Yeah.
Like, but they have like the red S on all of their shoulders, and it's just really cool. You see like he's turned. Apparently, Superman gets control of the world. It turns into Mad Max, basically. Yeah. It basically turns into Mad Max. I think they said, "Oh, hey, where's Mad Max shooting? We're gonna do a couple scenes there. Let's go. Right. You guys want to go visit the Mad Max set? We'll do some shooting. We'll write it off." That's what I felt like. Batman had like a 9mm, was like blowing dudes away, and it's like, wow, I hope this is a dream sequence. Otherwise, I'm totally not down with this Batman. It's like, no, it was, but it's like that's how far he got pushed. I guess so. That's what I pulled away from it. I was like, man, he's been pushed really far if he's doing that. Yeah. And I wonder if these dream sequences were so. You probably didn't know. Ben Affleck wrote part of the script.
I had heard that.
He rewrote it, and he did it while he was dressed in that costume. I wonder if these dream sequences are what he wrote.
Maybe.
Because if so, that would be awesome. If not, that's still cool. I like that he was like, I need to be Batman for this. So he puts on the outfit to write it. To write what needs to be written, he needs to become Batman. So he dresses as Batman. I think that's amazing. There's a lot of really great stuff in the film. A lot of really cool stuff that happened. You know, and that's the thing. I mentioned earlier, if I had just explained it to you, it'd be really hard to just know. Just to be like, oh, well, that makes sense, or that sounds awesome. It's a spectacle. It really is. Is it good? I don't know. Jury's still out on that for me. I got it gestated more. Right. I think it was good. I had a good time watching it. I didn't have a bad time. I didn't feel like I wasted my money. I probably would have wasted more money buying this as a comic book, as a 3 or 4 set graphics novel series, versus just paying the matinee price to go see it.
Right.
Good stuff. Like I felt I had fun watching it. Were there plot holes all over the place?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, all over the place. I know why she threw it in the water now, because if it had been out on the ground, it would have been crushed when Doomsday blows everything up, the Kryptonite sphere. I get why she had to put it down there. Then I get why that she had to go back to find it and all that stuff. I get it. I understand she's in on it. She's a main part of the plot. I get that. Actually, one thing I did love a lot is that to take down Doomsday, it took all 3 of them.
Yeah.
They wasn't like, oh, we're going to attack on Wonder Woman. It's Wonder Woman was basically the main tank for this.
Yeah, she's holding Doomsday out for a while, basically. Just holding him off.
Just holding him off. Mm-hmm. She cuts off Doomsday's hand at one point.
Yeah.
Which actually leads to Superman's death. Because it turns into like this bone spike.
Wonder Woman.
But I mean, if I think about it, So Superman takes the spear and he flies it right into Doomsday's chest. And you actually see Superman like he launches off like Superman, and then you see him like slow down and like have trouble flying until he impales Doomsday.
Right.
And right before he does that, so that he can impale Doomsday, Batman hits him with the gas, his last thing of noxious gas. The Kryptonite gas hits Doomsday, and he's just like, oh, I'm choking on a bag of dicks. Oh. And he does that. And it's great. Not the choking up the Batman shooting, not the bag of dicks part. Could Doomsday come back? They say every attack, Doomsday gets stronger from it. How does Doomsday get stronger? From a bag of dicks choking him.
Nobody does.
Bag of dicks, man. The hero that we need.
Oh, gosh.
Have at you! Oh, what did I get hit by? Is this literally a bag filled with dicks? Indeed. Gross. I'm bag of dicks, man. He's like some dude in like some scrubs. And he's just like carrying around bloody bags, because I imagine he'd suffer them. Like, how else are you going to get a bag full of literal dicks?
I don't know. I don't want to think about it.
This isn't the time where this isn't the Ask Chandler time, so I can ask any dick-related question I want. Doesn't mean Chandler has to answer, though.
Nope.
All right, so, I mean, gosh, I basically just splurged mostly here, but I mean, say what you want. Need to say?
You pretty much hit it all on the head there. I mean, it's just... Was it a good movie? Maybe. I felt like it was something that the movie needed to be told to, go where they wanted to go with it, which makes sense. And were there plot holes? Absolutely.
Were there plot holes?
Maybe.
Maybe. There was a lot of girls. Mercy, she's a total plot hoe.
Right.
No, I shouldn't say that. That's slut shaming. And we don't know her relationship with anybody.
True.
She's really there to be Mercy, the secretary of Lex Luthor. She's in the comics and the animated series and stuff. I like Mercy as a character. I hated they killed her off. Yeah. I hated that they killed her off. Didn't like that whatsoever. It's like Lex Luthor killed her off for no apparent reason, other than people need to see that my assistant's there at least, I suppose.
Lex was kind of crazy.
Lex was crazy in a really cool way.
Right.
Lex Luthor isn't naturally bald.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay because they shave his head like a little bitch.
In prison. Yeah.
They do it. It's great. I thought Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg did a great job as Lex Luthor.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as casting goes, there was no problems with casting.
Right.
Everybody was casted perfectly. Just wonderfully. No complaints on casting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Trying to think of what else that like I pulled away from it. Yeah. I think you pretty much nailed everything there. So
well, you talked a lot as well.
True.
You corrected me on some stuff, and I appreciate that because I couldn't do what I do without you, Chandler.
Don't. No.
They can't see. They can't see.
Yes,
it's okay.
No,
they can't.
He's touching me.
Come on. frame.
You're in the way. I'm fine. See, look, they can see me. It's fine. There, I'm more in the frame.
There we go. Anyway, yeah, so I guess that was our take on Batman v Superman. Actually, hold on a second here. We actually have more to talk about, which is not surprising because the movie's enormous and just intense. Let's talk about how they're setting up the DC cinematic universe.
Okay.
So something you need to know is that Superman is dead. They even brought Kryptonite involved with this to make sure that he dead. They do this thing where like dirt's moving at the end, so maybe he's not dead, but he's dead. He's gonna need to stay dead for a while. They'll do the Return of Superman, but if they bring him back like in the next movie, I feel like it would be too cheap. And I really hope they don't. I really hope they make you feel like his death is permanent. I hope they do things to like really convey that. He was gonna ask her to marry him. Out of nowhere, of course, because that's how this movie works. Yeah. Plot development out of nowhere. I'm sure that
the burial didn't make really much sense either, because going back to the comic books and the animated comic that I watched for Doomsday for what is it called?
Oh, the
Doomsday versus Superman.
Yeah, the Death and Return of Superman, the animated.
Right.
Movie.
His like tomb or whatever they put him in basically has direct sunlight, and so that's how he's able to revive himself. Without sunlight, how is he going to revive?
Right. And that's the thing. They did that in the animated movie. In the comics, he didn't die. He entered a death state.
Which is the same thing that they premised in the movie. But because sunlight was still hitting him, he was able to regenerate.
Well, they do that, remember, because he dies in space. That happens. Superman pretty much dies in space.
They nuke him in space.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
They straight up nuke him in space. The United States military nukes Superman in space to try to kill Doomsday. And what does Superman do? He throws Doomsday onto the rocket.
He sees it coming, then he just keeps pushing him higher and higher and higher. He's like, well, I'm taking you with me. And then
he doesn't take him with him.
Doomsday is like, I eat nuclear radiation for lunch, that type of thing.
I don't think it was that, because he got back and he's just like, oh, you thought it was weird that I looked like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with my smooth skin from the new movies?
Bone spikes.
Yeah, and then he's just like, oh, I loved it, though, because they were like, the bone spikes like tore off. Basically, it's like he was shedding the weakness that he had with the radiation.
Right.
It's cool. So the bones were like to be anti-radiation, I guess. I don't know.
Who knows?
Doomsday in the comics literally will like die and then come back to life with like immunity to what killed him the last time. So, man, okay, yeah, let's talk about the fact that like they straight up nuke Superman. Superman is like emaciated in space and he's dying, and then he gets like direct sunlight and he's just like, you see them like CGI his face back to normal, and it's like the weirdest thing. Yeah, it was super weird.
He was kind of like ghoulish or
like ghoulish,
ghoulish looking, like from Fallout. And so like then all of a sudden
he was green too.
He was
like green.
He was, and then all of a sudden he's better because
sunlight.
So
yep.
Superman stuff.
Superman science.
Right.
Superman got sunlight. He's okay. But he gets like pure radiation from that too.
Yeah, he doesn't have the atmosphere to like dilute it or whatever. So
nope. So he's back in the fight, and then he gets back in the fight, and then it's like him, Batman, and then Wonder Woman, and then they have the really iconic thing that they pulled for the trailer. Is she with you? No, I thought she was with you.
Yeah,
it was good to see it played out that way. Because the way that they set it up is that you would think that they were with the other person, because Superman basically almost died in space, and then Batman almost died in like real, like down on Earth, because Doomsday was gonna like blow his face apart with lasers. Yeah, really cool, really great stuff. Man. So they're setting up this universe. We talked a little bit about it. So Lex Luthor's been collecting meta-human data, and you see basically the intro for Wonder Woman, Cyborg, The Flash, and Aquaman. You get them. It's great. You'd probably be thinking, where was Wonder Woman for over almost 100 years? Great question. She answers that. She gave up on the plight of men. And that's like her segue into basically like, I gave up on humanity. Yeah. So it sets her apart from being human, but at the same time, know that there's a story there for that. And they're going to tell that with the Wonder Woman movie, which is great. just kind of reversing the order. They're really going like the reverse of Marvel.
Which
they have their first big team up movie. Then they reverse it, pull it out, and tell different stories. And then they're going to have another one with the Justice League movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I can actually predict it. So Superman's dead. They're about to lose to Darkseid, and then Superman comes back to life. There you go.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what's going to happen.
That's pretty much what's going to happen. I'm sure. I don't know. I could be wrong. They could go about it like a couple different ways. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I hope they keep Superman dead for a while, make his death impact, because it does. Because I mentioned Batman has been branding people with his branding iron, and at the very end, he chooses not to brand Lex Luthor. Because and they mentioned in the movie, and they only mentioned it once, getting branded with the Batman branding iron is basically a death sentence in prison.
Well, they kind of mentioned it twice. It was verbally mentioned once, and then the Polaroid pictures, jury.
Oh, that's right.
An executioner, judge, jury, executioner, and there was a question mark, and it had all the guys that had the Batman symbol branded on them.
They were dead. I didn't realize that until just now. Those were pictures of dead bodies with the icon. I didn't know that. I thought that those were just crime scene photos, but they weren't. They were literally dead people that had the Batman symbol branded on them. So it was a literal death sentence. He could have made Lex Luthor die.
True.
But instead he chose to spare him. Why? Because Superman changed him. That's the whole thing. That's really like the end of the movie. He's talking about the legacy of Superman. Superman, they don't know how to look. A Wonder Woman says it best. She says they don't know how to honor him. So they have to honor him as a soldier.
Right.
They give him like a 21 cannon salute. They have this big marching thing where there are mourners everywhere. And instead of a monument, so the Superman memorial, like monument that they had before, gets wrecked by Doomsday. And instead of remaking one, they just have a plaque that says, if you're looking for the monument, or if you're looking for his monument, look around you. To say, because of what's around you, because we're all here, that's a monument to what Superman's done. Look around you. It's like this inspirational message that they're trying to make. They really are making Superman whatever you need him to be. He's the symbol of hope. To Lex Luthor, he had to be an adversary because he symbolized something above Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor has a terrible complex about his father and abuse, and they really dwell into it. He has these like neurological tics, but instead of it being like, oh, he's a loopy, crazy guy, at the end it makes more sense is that they come from continuously going through nervous breakdowns because your father beats the hell out of you. They're tics that you see in adults who have survived abuse. The tics that, people that are getting close to you, like you twitch. It's things you see in abuse victims. It's clear that he never got any of the help he needed. But at the same time, he's considered sociable. He's considered super weird, but he's sociable. He meets and dines with senators and governors and all sorts of people. The people who work for him like him. He's never a dick to anybody that works for him.
One of the first scenes you see him in, he's playing basketball with a bunch of people.
Yeah,
in his office or his building or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, oh, step into my office. And it's basically where they're already at.
It's like a little cabana, like bar thing off to the side.
Oh my gosh, can we talk about it before a moment? The cherry. Now, there's very few things that you could say, well, he offers him a cherry Jolly Rancher.
No, he forces him, or he force feeds him a Jolly Rancher.
It's a force. It's like he's.
He's like, you're not gonna take this. It's cherry, stupid.
He's like,
eat it.
Oh no, it's cherry. Like, oh, you don't know what it is. It's okay. It's cherry. It's a cherry Jolly Rancher.
And just plops it in
in his mouth, and the guy's tongue is like.
Yeah.
And then he does this.
He licks his fingers out.
Like right after. It's really great. It really shows you like who has the power in this relationship in a very weird, twisted way.
Yeah.
Man, Jesse Eisenberg possibly could have been a good Joker. Nah.
Yeah.
I'm still out on the, like, when it comes to the Suicide Squad movie, I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work either. This one was up in the air. Like, is it going to work? Could it work? We'll see. No, we will really see. I think we saw, actually. It works.
Yeah.
The question we were wondering, the question we were asking, does it work? And the answer is yes, it does. Did it need to be good? No. That's not the point of this movie. I don't think the point of this movie was to be good. I think the point of this movie was to basically do the groundwork that otherwise would have normally taken 3 or 4 movies. They don't have that time.
Yeah.
They don't have the budget. They put the money and effort into this and hoped it worked, and I think it did. It's definitely going to make its money back. so we're going to get another one regardless of how you feel about it. Critics have panned this has been a very divisive movie. You either liked it, didn't like it, but didn't hate it, or you absolutely hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I think we're in that middle camp where it's like,
absolutely.
I don't know if I liked it, but yeah, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was the most comic book movie I've ever seen. Now, I think it redeems Ben Affleck as a superhero actor after Daredevil.
Mm.
Daredevil, of course, is actually his favorite comic book and his comic book hero.
Mm-hmm.
But Ben Affleck, screwed the pooch on that. Well, it wasn't his fault, really. It was just a really trashy movie.
Right.
There's a lot of problems with that movie. But we're not going to go into that. That's a whole can of worms we don't need to go into. But he got his redeeming moment. He gets to be Batman. He gets to be like this very iconic Batman.
Mm-hmm.
A Batman that is strong and respected. A Batman that's top tier in superheroes. Mm-hmm. They successfully make you look at Batman and say, he doesn't have superpowers. And it's like not the technology he uses isn't that like crazy expensive. Oh, maybe it was, since he did use a hyper-focused laser to cut.
Yeah. That was like, like Hadron Collider level stuff. That was crazy.
That was crazy. It's a really great scene. Man, it's just good. I don't know. I mean, I had a good time watching it. I don't know if I'd ever watch it again.
Right.
I think if I watch it again, I hope they come out with like an extended edition that has all the stuff they cut from it. I'd watch the hell out of that. Because that's going to be like a 6-hour movie.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. They actually said that now this is actually a closing note, and we'll talk about it. Could you have seen this as a rated R movie? Like as a rated R, like rating for like some of the content that they had.
I think if they pushed it a little farther, yeah, it could have been rated R.
Good news. The original cut was actually rated R.
Interesting.
So they've edited it. So this is actually what we're seeing is an edited film that's been edited from what was an R cut to a PG-13. When it comes out on Blu-ray, it's going to come out with an unedited version, which means it's going to have the full R effect of it. A lot of people, when they announce it, oh, by the way, Batman v Superman, when it comes out on DVD, is going to have an R rating attached to it for or an unrated version of it.
Right.
And people are like, oh, you're just copying Deadpool because Deadpool's successful. I think they announced it because Deadpool was successful with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they already had this kind of in their back pocket because this comes off as very an adult tone.
Yeah.
It's a very fantastical take on Batman. It's a very grounded take on Superman, and it's a very great way to finally introduce Wonder Woman to the big screen as a powerful, confident, strong, powerful, confident woman.
Mm-hmm.
Just never does she come off as eye candy. Never does she come off as being just that like add-on, like, oh, they added her on so they would have a girl. She plays a pivotal role in the plot.
Yeah.
Because she's the introduction to more than just Batman v Superman. She's the key point in getting to all the other metahumans that we'll need for the Justice League.
Right.
She plays a key part in breaking this to be more than just a Batman v Superman movie. To being the prelude to to make it the dawn of justice.
Mm-hmm.
This is the dawn of justice. Why? Because we have Wonder Woman to segue us into that greater thing. Batman talks about how he feels like there's definitely a reason why they need to unite and be a team. And it's clear that he was inspired by Superman to do this because he saw firsthand what happens when when more than just one of them works together. So you're not going to have the Justice League movie that you expect where Batman is the holdout. Mm-hmm. Batman is the instigator. He knows that this is bigger than him. He knows it's bigger than any one of them.
Right.
Any one of them can't succeed. They need everybody as much as possible. Batman's going to think, if only we had had more, if only we had Aquaman to do his pull cue thing, pew, 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 pew. his trident. If only we had somebody who had super speed, if only we had this cyborg guy that could have helped. If only we had this Justice League, Superman wouldn't be dead. You can tell that's a driving force for him. Mm-hmm. But one of the most I almost teared up really badly was the scene where they're walking an old school Kansas funeral for Clark Kent. So this is how they actually explain. So Superman dies, and they explain that Clark Kent, because Clark Kent has actually been following the Batman, he's been doing all this research about the Batman, and so they say Clark Kent died reporting Like, so he was there as a reporter, and he got killed in the blast of Doomsday. So they have so you have the front page, Superman's dead. And it's actually a great scene because you see Perry White grab the paper, and on the front page it says Superman's dead, and he pulls off the front page, and he goes to the back page, and you see a very brief, small column. Clark Kent, reporter, dies, reporting Batman, Superman, Doomsday tragedy. And it's like this small little bit of a column, and it's like, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how Clark Kent would want it. Because it's important to know that Superman is, everybody's like, well, he's Superman. It's like, he's Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
There's this really amazing scene where it's and this is why it doesn't work if it's a movie. It doesn't work as a part of the movie. The whole Jonathan Kent at the top of like Mount Everest.
Right.
That doesn't work as a movie.
Mm-mm.
It's a terrible part. To look at that in the context of it being a movie, it's terrible. Why would you do that? He's dead. The audience knows him as being dead. Why would you bring him back as a specter why would you do that? But if you look at it not as a movie, but in the greater context of this is a comic book come to life,
mm-hmm.
It makes total sense. Of course, because this kind of stuff happens all the time, and then you get like the page where you find out the reveal that, oh, it's not. He wasn't there. It was a conversation he had to have in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I wanted to know if it worked. I didn't want it to be good. I didn't care if it was good. I wanted to know if it would work, and it does. Closing thoughts, Chandler.
Yeah, it worked. There were parts that were enjoyable.
Yeah.
There were parts where like, oh, that was cool, or whoa, that car just killed 3 people because Batman sandwiched it on another one. You're like, whoa, okay, Batman's kind of angry. But yeah, it like you said, it worked. It laid that groundwork for what they're trying to do. For the Justice League movie, but also for Wonder Woman, the other Batman movie, and if they're doing, do we know if they're doing like an Aquaman or Flash
I don't know.
movie?
Maybe. I don't know maybe. I hope so. I mean, because I love Jason Momoa.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing Aquaman. He looked so good as Aquaman.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the 30 seconds they gave him,
Mm-hmm.
he like stole that show there. Ezra Miller stole it as Flash in his little segment. Cyborg, you actually didn't get to see Cyborg because you saw Cyborg's dad basically like shut off a camera as he was making Cyborg, bringing him back to life, which was cool because basically you get like that. You get a little glimpse of what makes each hero worth it, and they had to do really big with Aquaman because normally people like that loser who like can't do anything because they're not in the ocean.
Talks to fish.
He talks to fish. Well, I know better because I read the Jeff Johns Aquaman series as part of the DC reboot.
Mm-hmm. After
the Flashpoint reset. I read it, so I understand why Aquaman's cool, but other people don't. Yeah, so keep going. I was like, oh, you said that one thing that reminded me of 6 other things. Shut up, Chandler.
Yeah, so it worked. I feel like to appreciate the film, just go watch it. Like, you can read all the reviews on it you want, but until you just watch it and understand that this isn't a movie for a movie's sake, it's a movie for future movies. Go in with that mindset, or just no mindset. That's what I did, because like was mentioned earlier, I hadn't watched any trailers. I didn't want to go in with any type of what's the word?
Preconception.
Thank you. At all. And it delivered what it was intended to do. So
yeah, it worked.
Absolutely.
I tweeted at somebody, I was like, I don't care if it's good or not. I just want to know if it works, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's it for our live cast. The live spoiler cast of Batman v Superman. Mm-hmm. We've had a great time here with you guys. Although I don't think I saw that 0 go close.
We had 2 earlier.
We had 2 earlier, and now we're back to 0. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming, you 2 guys. Thank you. We had a great time just dishing about it. Mm-hmm. And like Chandler said, go see it. Make up your own mind, because honestly, this is a movie that you can't trust the critics on. Mm-hmm. You can't trust other people on. You have to go in for yourself and know with your gut whether or not it's a good movie or not. I don't think it was a good movie, but It was a great comic book come to life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is I made the realization as we were leaving. I was like, if you look at, or not when we were leaving, we were driving back. Cause like I said, we didn't really talk. I was just kept thinking to myself, I felt like this was like this, like it was like you could have taken dialogue, drawn a comic for that dialogue, for the script. That felt like a comic book script. It didn't feel like a movie script. For some of some of the lines were like nonsensical unless you like look at them through a comic book lens.
Yeah.
Oh, they mentioned that once, like 2 hours ago.
Right.
But it's like, well, that's how comic books work. They mentioned it in issue 1. What? You didn't? I'm upset because they only mentioned it in issue 1. Mm-hmm. It's called a callback, people. And in films, you need the callbacks to be more, come in regularly. Like we talked about the Bad Iron thing. Anyway, we had a great time talking to you guys. We had a great time seeing the film. I honestly thank you guys so much for watching. You, of course, can follow us. You can follow me at Unsexiest Comedy. Chandler, you can just follow at Naughty Gamer. Mm-hmm. On Instagram, you can follow at Naughty Gamers. And there you go. Like, he's on that Instagram. Aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on that Instagram. I'm not on that Instagram.
It's fine.
I'm not good at Instagram.
You can always just go to our website. It's all up there, too.
It's all up there. Because normally be like, you could go to youtube.com, but we don't have enough subscribers. So maybe, I don't know, click that subscribe button, help us get it so that we can have our name in our URL.
Yes.
That'd be huge for us. Unabashedly, I think we're like, I don't know. I haven't watched, like I said, went into this as close to nil as possible. So I'm interested in actually going back and watching some other reviews and be like, man, I'm glad I didn't watch that before, because that can give you some rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, verdict, Batman v Superman, not necessarily a good movie. Great comic book. I think that's the consensus.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for watching. We're the Naughty Gamers, and you can follow us at naughtygamers.com. Have a great time. And how are we going to end this? I don't know how we end this podcast. Peace out. Have a good time. I know. This is an easy one. Happy Easter, everybody.
There you go.
Gotta wait for that to let up. There we go.